Another journal episode. So this story is going to involve three main players. One is a guy from a legitimate, famous rock band, a bass player from a very well-known at the time rock band. Actually went on tour with Monsters of Rock with Van Halen. And the other character is a real-life friend of mine. I'm going to call her Eiko, not her real name, but she was a Japanese girl. We'll call her Eiko. And the third person is a major celebrity. I'm not going to tell you who that is till we get a little deeper. I'm actually out here doing DoorDash the day after Thanksgiving. I hope everybody's good. So today I'm going to sort of tell a story that I never thought I would tell to the public because it involves like some celebrities, it involves siblings of celebrities, and some people that I know from real life to this day. All this happened in the late 90s, so it's 25 years ago basically. I feel like there's such a thing as a statute of limitations. What's that movie where the guy says it's statute of limitations? No, statute. Anyhow, statute of limitations, I'd imagine, for this type of story doesn't exist. I mean, 25 years ago, it's not like I unalived somebody or something like that. It's all stories about herb. So I've told you guys that I was a dealer for years, 15 years more. Just small amounts, very, very small scale. Fun way to make a living. I was also playing poker at the time. It was a great life, but I was surrounded by degenerates. I mean, weed customers and poker players. Definitely a group of degens. So I was already a pothead. Let's say I was probably like, how fucking old was I? 25 years ago, I guess I was in my late 20s, right? And I was already like a pothead, and you go through connections when you're a smoker. You make these like black market connections that come and go. So we all go through our connections, and I made a connection at Runyon Canyon Park with this guy with like really long, like blonde hair, obvious rocker guy. Turned out to be also like a heroin junkie. We became good friends. His name was J.B. Frank. Pretty sure he's still alive, but he was the bassist for Kingdom Come. And at one point, they sold 8 million records. I know this because he told me this every time that I saw him, that he sold 8 million records with his band. So, but anyhow, he was a cool guy, as cool as you can be. Lived in kind of like sort of a shitty place in the neighborhood with his girlfriend way younger than him. He was probably 40, she was probably 20 at the time, would be my guess. I met him at the park, and he became like a weed connection for me, a place to buy herb. He had pretty good flour, pretty good prices. And then a lot of my friends started asking me, can you get me something when you go to score? Because the quality was good. So, of course, I did. And that's almost how every dealer starts. Their friends ask them for flour or for whatever they're dealing, and you pick it up, and at first you don't make any money, and then it becomes a pain in the ass, and then you start, making some money off of it. So that was just the very beginning how I became a weed dealer. I met J.B. Frank, who was already a weed dealer / junkie / trying to get back into the rock and roll business. He was a fun guy, easy to deal with. He was growing in his place as well. He was actually growing some Alaskan Thunderfuck, if you know what that was. So if somehow, JB, you do see this, if I said anything bad against you, I love you, buddy. You were a good friend at the time. I don't know if you're still alive, though. I should look you up on Facebook. So that's the story up to JB Frank, and I'll do the rest later. It's still working. Now we're at McDonald's. We have a few minutes. We're waiting for our order. So yeah, I started my professional career as a dealer with JB Frank. He was my first wholesale connection. He would sell me like ounces. Really, I was a small dealer. And then somewhere along the line, living in Hollywood, I made a lot of friends at the local park, and I became friends with a celebrity's brother. I became really good friends with Alicia Silverstone's brother. His name was David. I don't think I need to hide his identity because he's a weed dealer up north. If I'm smart, I'll post a picture of his Instagram here, but he's a grower up north. But 20, maybe 25 years ago, I met him, we made friends, and he was a guy I could get weed through, but he wasn't really a dealer. He was just super, super friendly, super total like California hippie type guy. Very, very cool, even though from a really incredibly like interesting family. His parents, I think, were actually English. And, obviously Alicia Silverstone back in the day was a giant fucking celebrity. So we became friends. He was a really interesting, cool, like I said, sort of like a hippie, California laid-back guy. I think he was pretty good looking or considered that. Always had pretty girlfriends. But he gave me my second weed connection which is my celebrity connection for the time. He referred me to a girl, I'm going to call Aiko, who is the assistant to this major celebrity who nowadays is considered, I think, something of a weed celebrity. He's definitely in the business. But at that point, I started buying larger amounts, quarter pounds, through Aiko, and she was Woody Harrelson's assistant. And I didn't believe it at first, but she would invite me up to his office to pick up herb. I mean, it was incredibly loose back then, even though it was super illegal. Definitely worried about getting arrested and shit. But I remember going into the office and kind of looking at the mail, and the mail is like addressed to Woody Harrelson, so I know it wasn't bullshit. I never saw Woody, met Woody. I never met Alicia Silverstone. David was pretty particular about not letting people into her home, even though I picked him up from her place, dropped him off there sometimes. I used to have a car, I had a pretty cool 85 Camaro out here at one point. But so my second big connection, Aiko used to sell me quarter pounds of like Trainwreck, Romulan, Purple Urkel, all these like classic strains from back in the day. And she was a really, really interesting person in herself. My food's ready here, so I hear them calling my name, so give me a second and I'll come back with the rest of the story. It's the following day, the rest of the story. So I met Aiko. I used to go to Woody's office to pick up herb, all those classic old school strains. It was crazy what I was paying for herb back then. I was paying $1,400 for quarters. That's $350 a zip. Crazy, crazy expensive, but I was selling it for like $550 a zip, $70, as much as $70 for a gator. Pretty freaking expensive. So I created the business. I developed the business by hanging out initially at Runyon Canyon Park a lot. I just made like a lot of friends there, and we would go to the woods and smoke. As stupid and dangerous as that sounds, at least we never burnt down the park. But we used to go into the woods and smoke, and I slowly made friends that way. I made lots and lots of friends hanging out just with our dogs. And then eventually I became a yoga teacher at the same park. And, teaching yoga, there's not a ton of money. I mean, I was playing poker at the time, but I started selling to my students. It's not like I announced at the end of the class that I could sell you herb, but I would often smoke with students at the end of the class. I did that for like only 1 year out of the 20 years that I taught. I'm remembering it now. It's interesting. I used to teach class, have a good class, and at the end of the class, if anybody wanted to sit down and smoke herb, we would sit down and smoke herb after the class. I mean, California has always had something of like a loose system when it comes to cannabis, although we did worry a lot about getting busted. But I developed like a really good business. I must have had 50 small customers when I was a full-time dealer. And the way I used to do it is, it's not like I stood on the street and sold. If you wanted to buy something, you would call me, give me some sort of a code. I remember I actually had business cards that said THC, the hottest concerts. That was my business card. So if you wanted to buy something from me, you would have to call me and say, hey, I want to get some tickets. And a ticket was an eighth. I said, how many tickets do you want? Usually 1 or 2. Rarely somebody would buy like a half of an ounce, 4 tickets. It's cold today. But that's how I ran the business. And you'd call me, you'd come to my apartment. I actually lived right around the corner. You wouldn't come into my place. I didn't let people into my place. You'd call me, let me know you were there. I would run downstairs with the tickets. I would get in your car. You would drive me around the block. You would give me money. I would give you the tickets. And that's how I ran my business. And I did that for, almost 20 years, a really long time. And then at one point, the shops around here, the medical shops, really became pervasive. And while they were medical shops, I still kept a lot of my customers, but slowly over the years. Well, first of all, I moved to Woodland Hills with a girlfriend for whatever reason. I don't know why. We wanted to rent a house. Houses in Hollywood were too expensive, so we moved to Woodland Hills. I actually was growing up there too. So the best time selling for me was when I was growing my own stuff and selling it. That's when your profit margins were the highest, but that was a lot of stress. Growing was illegal back then. Obviously, dealing was illegal, but it was a super stressful job. But once the shops came into town, I'm not really sure what year that was, but within 3 years, I was done dealing, and I transitioned into becoming a full-time yoga teacher and personal trainer. And this is a long time ago, 10, 12, 15 years ago. And if I think about it now, and then once the business was done, I became a full-time personal trainer, yoga teacher. And then years later, I became what I am today, which is basically a DoorDash driver, YouTuber, and affiliate salesman. So that is the story of celebrities, siblings of celebrities, and me being a criminal. At the time, definitely criminal. Today, more gray market, but less criminal. Guys, I appreciate your support. Thanks for watching the journal. See you next time.